Around 90% of women that meet their demise at someone else's hands do so at the hands of someone they know, someone close to them. They say to keep your friends close, but your enemies closer, but mention nothing of lovers. This case, sadly, does nothing to reduce these statistics. Viewer discretion is advised for this educational documentary. Welcome back to Dark Case Documentaries. I bring you true crime, disturbing stories and other things that you may later regret knowing, with regular uploads every week. Please do consider joining the Dark Case family by hitting subscribe now and turning on notifications. Thank you so much to all of my patrons. If your name is on screen right now, then you're a legend. I just want to take a quick second to let you know that here at Dark Case Documentaries, I don't use AI voices and I never will. I think doing so kind of devalues what we're doing here and what the true crime community should be doing as a whole. So I'm afraid you're stuck with me. But now let's get into today's dark case. Our love and respect goes out to all those involved. Andrea Venter, born on March 25, 1993, in Schweizer, South Africa, had a unique start to life as the first test tube baby in Rustenburg. Her parents, Dries Venter and Antje Venter, considered her a much-loved miracle after trying and waiting for 12 years for a child. Andrea's childhood was a happy one. She grew up in a loving and supportive environment. From an early age, Andrea displayed an outgoing and sociable nature, always eager to spend time with friends and family, to get out and see the world. Her infectious smile and positive demeanour endeared her to everyone who knew her. She engaged in outdoor activities like netball, hockey and tennis. She developed a competitive spirit and excelled in everything that she did. And this excellence extended to musical abilities as well. She showcased her talents by playing piano and guitar. Her cheerful personality, coupled with enthusiasm for trying new things, marked her as a person with a promising future. This hunger for life propelled Andrea to the Northwest University, situated in Potchefstroom. And it was there she pursued a degree in commerce and accounting with dedication and passion. And her hard work paid off as she became an outstanding student and eventually alumni, graduating with honours. Andrea then secured employment in Rustenburg as an accountant, and there she met Gerhard Jansen Van Vuuren, a meeting that would change the course of her life forever. Schweizer, situated in the northwest province of South Africa, is a town that has a unique blend of modernity and tradition. Known for its close-knit community and gorgeous landscapes, it provided a quiet and supportive backdrop for Andrea to spend her younger years. The town, founded in the late 1800s, is characterized by friendly locals, community events, and a strong sense of unity. The nature of the town means that Andrea wasn't just seen as a number, she was seen as an individual. Her life took a turn after meeting Gerhard, who was 12 years her senior. The connection was immediate, drawing Andrea into a relationship that quickly evolved into a deep and intense love. However, the initial attraction began to unravel. Gerhard's behavior became increasingly possessive and controlling. The relationship soon turned totally toxic. This was marked by heated arguments, yelling and screaming. Van Vuuren's need for dominance manifested as a disturbing shift, a shift that led to an escalation of conflicts from verbal disputes to physical altercations. Andrea recognized the unhealthy nature of their connection, and she bravely made the decision to end the relationship. And this should have been when things got better for Andrea. She was trying her best to move on with her life, and to continue on the upwards trajectory that she had made for herself and her future. However, Gerhard's obsession with Andrea grew to alarming levels. He demonstrated his willingness to go to the extremes to preserve their relationship. Unwilling to let her go, Andrea began to experience a gradual decline in her vibrant personality. She was simply trying her best to appease Gerhard's relentless advances. She became more and more reclusive, losing her spark as she continued to face pressure from her boyfriend turned stalker. Gerhard's relentless pursuit manifested in threats and intimidation, causing Andrea to avoid him at all costs, retreating into hiding. However, Van Vuuren seemed to possess an uncanny ability to locate Andrea every time she tried to get away. Her fear and anxiety only heightened. When he did find her, not only did he threaten her directly, but he also extended his malice to her parents. This was after he learned that they had been advising Andrea to hide from him. The situation escalated once more when Gerhard began making threats to end the lives of Andrea's parents, showing how truly disturbed he was becoming. He had now explicitly conveyed his sinister intentions, stating that if he couldn't have Andrea, then nobody could. This was the last straw. Andrea now knew that she had to take serious action to protect herself and now her family. In an effort to finally escape the torment of Van Vuuren, Andrea made the difficult decision to relocate from Rustenburg to the nearby city of Johannesburg. She fled, leaving no information behind about where she was going. She was seeking a fresh start, seeking sanctuary away from the haunting presence of her ex-boyfriend. And it was now that she took the crucial step of obtaining a protection order against him. However, Van Vuuren's determination to locate her remained unyielding. This man wouldn't let her go. Unaware of Andrea's new location, he searched everywhere in Rustenburg to locate her. It was then that he would receive a revealing shock. The Johannesburg police contacted him to inform him about the protection order that was taken out against him. Sadly, this meant that Gerhard now knew that Andrea was located in Johannesburg. With a staggering population of 4.4 million people, Van Vuuren embarked on an obsessive mission to locate Andrea. His relentless pursuit involved calling every accounting firm in the city, until finally he heard a familiar voice on the other end of the phone. When Andrea answered her work phone, her blood ran cold as she heard the words, "Now I know where to find you." Once he had located her workplace, Gerhard began a truly disturbing pattern of behavior that extended beyond anything he'd done before. He now watched her every move, following her closely as he sat outside her workplace, until finally he was able to follow her home and discover where she lived. Andrea lived in constant fear, knowing she was being stalked, and that her attempts to escape Gerhard had not been successful. On Friday, April 29th, 2011, Gerhard slipped past the gate at Andrea's apartment complex and waited for her to arrive home from work. As Andrea walked down the hallway, Gerhard was there waiting. He forced her into her own apartment. This is where he would keep her for an entire weekend. Andrea would endure endless torture at his hands. May 2nd, 2011 marked the day that Andrea mustered every ounce of strength that she had, determined to escape from her now hellish apartment. Wounded and terrified, Andrea managed to break free from Gerhard's belt, even though it was still tightened around her neck. She had wounds littering her body. As she ran and screamed for help, Gerhard pursued her with a sharp implement clutched in his hand. The air was thick with desperation as Andrea ran as fast as she could outside the apartment complex. She was sprinting towards the guard's house at the front gate. But she tripped and fell. This gave Gerhard just enough time to catch up with her. He struck her whilst wearing brass knuckles. This was followed by 14 plunges into Andrea with a sharp implement. Amidst the chaos, people began to take notice of Andrea's scream. A security guard did his best to intervene, but finally, Gerhard ran the sharp implement across Andrea's neck. This was to be the final blow. Onlookers watched in horror. A crowd began to gather. Multiple people dialed for emergency services, unsure of how to help Andrea as she struggled to stay alive. As the crowd grew, Gerhard realized the weight of what he had done. In an attempt to avoid consequences for his actions, he took the same sharp implement used on Andrea and dragged it across his own throat, attempting to end his own time on this earth. Little did he know that every horrific moment of the attack had been captured on security camera. By the time authorities arrived, Andrea had already taken her final breath. But Gerhard's attempts on himself proved to be unsuccessful. Despite his heinous crimes, Gerhard was immediately brought to the nearest hospital, and there he made a full recovery, seemingly unaffected by the brutality that he had unleashed. Following his recovery, he found himself at Randburg Magistrates Court to face his bail hearings. The first two hearings, the police strongly argued against Gerhard receiving bail. This was due to the fact that he had already ignored the protection order that Andrea had taken out against him, showing that he had a complete disregard for the law. The prosecution was successful in this argument for two bail hearings, while his trial was continuously postponed until it was transferred to the Johannesburg High Court. At this bail hearing, the judge heard the same argument from the prosecution, but for some reason decided to grant Gerhard bail. This would allow him to walk free for over a year whilst he awaited trial. By May of 2013, Gerhard's trial had finally arrived, but when it came time for him to show his face in the courtroom, he was nowhere to be found. He had fled the country under the assumed identity of Daniel Joseph Moulton. Armed with a fake passport, Gerhard had managed to slip through the cracks without a trace. His father had played a crucial role in his escape by driving him to catch his flight out of South Africa, and it was his mother who had obtained this fake passport. However, the weight of her complicity wore heavily on Van Vuuren's mother. This caused her to reach out to the investigating psychologist in Gerhard's case and reveal that her son had fled to Brazil. Interpol promptly issued a warrant for his arrest, streamlining their efforts to track him down in Brazil. In August of the same year, Brazilian authorities arrested Gerhard on the grounds of providing false documentation, sentencing him to Brazilian prison for 4 years and 4 months. South African authorities patiently waited for Gerhard to serve out his sentence so that they could then intervene and extradite him back to South Africa. They believed then he would finally face the full extent of his crimes. In 2016, just over 2 years into his Brazilian sentence, Gerhard was released for good behaviour. While South African authorities were ready to extradite, the judge who ordered his release refused the extradition petition, stating that Gerhard had paid his dues, and therefore he should be able to walk free within the borders of Brazil. This came as a shock to the authorities as well as to Andrea's family. They now realised they may never gain true justice for the prolonged torture that their daughter had endured. Torture which ultimately led to the end of her life. Gerhard vanished once again. Over the next 5 years, Gerhard Van Vuuren's name would fade from the mouths of South African citizens and would move onto the back burner for authorities, until that is on one day in 2022, when Gerhard's mother would receive a Facebook message. Shockingly, it was from her son. He was updating him on his whereabouts in Rio de Janeiro, sharing the news that he now had a wife and kids. Little did he know that the South African authorities had been working with Interpol, as well as with Brazilian authorities to gain approval to track him down and then apprehend him. It was this Facebook message that would lead South African authorities to organise a raid along with Brazilian authorities and Interpol to finally place handcuffs on Gerhard. The international fugitive was in his living room with his wife and kids when officers burst through the doors and arrested him. This was now a decade after he did what he did to Andrea Venter outside of her own home, an event that ruined tens of lives. As he awaited extradition back to South Africa to face the courts, Gerhard's mother confidently stated that she believed her son was beyond saving and that he should receive the death penalty for what he had done. His true colours were finally shown to her as he threatened to end her life for cooperating with the police. He never showed remorse for what he had done to Andrea. Gerhard Van Vuuren's trial finally began in 2022. He was charged with the homicide of Andrea Venter, as well as assaulting the security guard who had witnessed the event, a man named Thulani Ndlovu. When Thulani took the stand, he detailed every second of the horror that he witnessed, how he heard Andrea's screams, and how he did his best to intervene when Gerhard threatened him with a blade as well. In defense, Gerhard's lawyer submitted a plea of non-pathological criminal incapacity at the time of the attack, arguing that Gerhard didn't realise the gravity of what he was doing as he struck the sharp implement into Andrea 14 times. The judge quickly dismissed this claim as the prosecution easily provided evidence that Gerhard had planned his attack beforehand, totally undermining any claims that his actions were out of his control. Once this defense claim crumbled, there was nothing left for Gerhard Van Vuuren to stand on. He was swiftly convicted of both Andrea Venter's death, as well as the assault on a security guard. In August of 2022, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Unfortunately, Andrea's mother would never get to see justice served in her lifetime. She passed away from a heart attack in 2016 after Gerhard had vanished for a second time, following his release from prison in Brazil. As for the rest of Andrea's family, they received justice that they had lost all hope for, relieved that this chapter of their lives could now be put to rest. Despite Gerhard finally sitting behind bars for life, they will sadly never recover from the bright future that was so horrifically stolen from their daughter, their sister, and their friend. Do you think the punishment fits the crime here? What do you think should be done to avoid something like this happening again in the future? Please do let me know down in the comments. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.